Hey everyone, welcome to the first show of New York State of Mind. We have since changed our show, going from Under Center to now New York State of Mind. What is New York State of Mind, you might ask? We're two guys from New York who got a lot of sports takes on our mind, and it's not just football. We're doing all sports now. We've graduated. We realized during the spring that as much as we love football, can get a little quiet during the off season, and we might as well just talk about everything. So once again, I'm Mitch Broder, Pat Tartaro. We're back at it. Pat.
Back. It's been a while, man.
It's been so long. I mean, it's been at least since the first week of March since we've gone together and talked about some sports. Too long, and good time to get it back started now that sports are starting to wake up from hibernation a little bit. Which is good to see. So let's get right into it. Why not talk about this NBA bubble that has since started to get put together here. All the teams are there, reported, and it's been successful, which I think is encouraging to see. I know the NHL, I believe, is implementing a bubble as well. But I think I saw a stat, I think out of 233 team personnel, which includes players, coaches, medics, all the stuff that have been tested. Only 2 tested positive, which is really good to see. So I'm optimistic this NBA season is going to work out.
All right, before I start, I just can't because I see your dog on your bed.
Yeah, the dog. I was telling Pat right before we went on. She hates my room for some reason. Yeah, she hates my room. I think there might be a ghost in here. I swear to God, I've had her in this room and she paces back and forth the whole time. It's insane. It's crazy to watch. What's that?
What's her name again?
It's Belle.
Belle?
Yeah. So she's the first viewer, I guess you could say, of New York State of Mind.
Back to the bubble. Listen, I'm not shocked about the NBA. We talked about it before we went on air. Adam Silver is on top of his stuff. He's doing a great job. Obviously, he's listening to all the CDC researchers and such. I also think the UFC has done a really good job. They had a pay-per-view this past Saturday with Jorge Masvidal and Usman, and obviously it wasn't that great of a fight, but just the way it was put together, they've tested their fighters daily. They're doing a great job. And I think by the time the NFL gets back to season, I honestly think they'll be fine because while it is a contact sport, obviously, they've been able to have the advantage of sitting back and watching these leagues and seeing the mistakes that they've made and the correct decisions that they've made as well. So they're going to be able to capitalize off that. Going back to the NBA, the bubble, the one thing about this that is interesting to me is that we all have our favorites. I think personally, I think the Bucks should be favored to come out of the East, but there's always a possibility now that one of these players tests positive and now they're automatically out for 2 weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see how this impacts everything because Adam Silver is not playing around. He doesn't care who you are, what your status is, if you're a star player, if you're a bench player. If you test positive or if you leave the bubble, you're in quarantine. So it's going to be very interesting, but they've done a really good job so far.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think too that, people first heard this bubble idea. It was like, man, like, do players really want to do this, be away from their homes, for a month or two? And I got to be honest.
Everyone's been complaining about the food.
Right. Listen, I don't think Mickey Mouse, waffles are that bad. I mean, I know but listen, I think I look at this though. At the end of the day, like, these guys are, quarantining in Disney World. Like,
yeah, like how
it could be a lot worse.
The average American, like, that doesn't sound that bad. You're getting paid money to play basketball.
And ultimately, I think you're seeing, a lot of guys ultimately, like, I know John Morant basically said, like, the food is fine, the room is fine, like, I don't care, I'm here to play ball. And, like, I think a lot of guys do, like, really mean that. Like, they really are in that same category as, listen, like, as long as I can play ball, like, I'm happy, Obviously, Rondo, had to send a picture of his room about, roasting it or whatever.
Yeah, and then he broke his finger the next day.
Broke his finger, so there's karma, right there for Rajon. But, but this is what the experts ultimately said is the safest way to bring back sports is this bubble idea. And, obviously people are concerned, no fans for the playoffs. How's that going to be? But I will say this. I watched the TBT. I don't know, Pat, if you watched at that basketball tournament with those teams for the $1 million prize. I was watching it for about 5 to 10 minutes.
If I'm correct, Marquette won it yesterday.
Yeah, the Marquette alumni team won it.
Yeah, awesome.
And, for about 5-10 minutes, I was like, it's a little weird when, like, a guy makes a basket. The only cheering you hear is coming from the bench,
Yeah.
But after you get over that, honestly, like, I didn't care. Like, I was totally fine. The guys were still playing hard, was still entertaining basketball. And I feel like the NBA is just going to be that, but obviously just better because the players are better. So I actually think that the quality of the game is still going to be good. I think that, this bubble will work, especially as long as players stay in the bubble. I know, I'm forgetting his name, that one Kings player who stepped outside the bubble to get Grubhub, and now he's, quarantined for 10 days. And
I forget.
Yeah. So as long as players, as long as players, don't do that, I think that this is going to be fine.
And also another thing, they put in that snitch hotline. Supposedly a lot of people have been using it so far, so it's doing what it's supposed to do. Also, before we move on to the next thing, Belle is passed out on your bed at that time.
Well,
I just thought I should point that out.
She loves to sleep. She's got that lab in her, which means she has to sleep at least 16 hours a day. I'm a little jealous of her most of the time. At least she doesn't get scared of thunder, because I don't know about how it's going down in Long Island, but upstate, man, it's pouring. I just came from an appointment. It is torrential downpours here.
Wow, it's actually beautiful outside today. That's
really?
Why it's shining from my window right now. It's kind of bright in my room.
Anyways, though,
Russell Westbrook, he's one of the few players who tested positive. The NBA has been doing a good job containing the virus. They've basically not allowed any of the athletes who have tested positive in the past few weeks to even get close to the Disney location, or whatever you want to call it. How do you think this impacts the Rockets? And do you think that this issue of contracting the virus will be an issue going forward?
So with the Rockets, I think that Westbrook, so he came out positive about a week ago, was it?
Yeah.
So the NBA starts in like 2 weeks, I think, or a week and a half from this weekend, I believe, like July 30th. So he should be okay.
Yeah.
So I think the Rockets will be fine. I actually do. I was at first very nervous when I saw it. I was like, no, like, not Westbrook. Like, it could be some bench warmer. Like, it really had to be Russ, who's like one of my favorite players to watch. But I think he'll be fine. I think that as far as the virus spreading, like I said, I think if everyone stays in the bubble, and is careful, I think the only risk comes from the employees, the cooks, the people who aren't living in that bubble. But if they're being tested regularly and they're masking and they're doing all the precautions
they are being tested.
And if they are all doing all the precautions they can, I think that, look, it could happen. Someone might test positive. But I think the NBA has done as good of a job as they can to minimize that risk.
Yeah.
So I'm not so concerned. Like, I think the NFL is a little bit more concerned because they can't. I mean, they simply can't put these guys in a bubble for half the year. It's just not fair to them.
Yeah.
So, but for the NBA, I'm not too concerned because these guys are getting the virus because they're not there yet. They got it from back being at home. So I think once everyone's there, everyone's negative, I think that this should be okay.
I agree with you. I think Russell Westbrook testing positive, I hope everything's all right, but I'm pretty sure he'll be fine. He's a dog on the court, man. The NBA can't afford to lose him in a situation like this. And in a situation where you don't know where the quality of basketball is going to be, you don't know what you're getting because guys are potentially going to be rusty in the beginning. You want a guy like Russell Westbrook because he's going to go hard every single night that he plays. You need a guy to raise the intensity like that. So in terms of the NBA, obviously not what you want to hear, but he, like you said, he should have enough time to get back in the court. James Harden actually just returned for them too, the Rockets. But do you think that the Rockets could potentially make it to the finals and / win it, or who are your favorites this year?
So my favorites are this. So for me, number one favorite, hands down, to the Lakers. They're the best team in the league. I mean, let's just face it, they're the best team in the league. And we've talked about it, man. Rajon Rondo with the hand injury kind of might be a blessing in disguise. because, you've talked about a lot how inefficient Rondo is, how he's had really not a very good season, yet he gets, at least 20 a game.
Yeah.
As far as minutes are concerned, I think that at the end of the day, LeBron is such a seasoned veteran. This guy's been there, done that. I mean, he's been to so many finals, and I don't worry about LeBron being ready to go. And I think Anthony Davis knows, like, this is his chance to get a ring, and it's a well-rounded team. It's a good team. They're well coached. I'm not concerned about them. Clippers are right behind them for my other favorite. Same deal. Just veterans, well coached, good team. To me, those are my two favorites. Are the two LA teams. I personally really don't think any team from the East is gonna contend with them. If I had to pick a team or two, maybe the Bucks with Giannis, but I still think the Bucks just don't have enough star power to get it done. Come the playoffs, and the Celtics with are a good team with some good players, but I don't think they have quite enough to beat these LA teams. Now with the Rockets, it's interesting. We were talking about them. There's no question that they got the talent. Westbrook, Harden. I mean, these are top 10 players in the league.
Yeah.
But they went all in on the analytics with no big men. And
yeah.
When they made that move, trade Capella, and are going with Tucker as the 5. I just think that come playoff basketball, with how physical the game gets, they're going to regret that. And how did they ultimately get bounced out of the playoffs last season? They couldn't hit a shot from 3. They missed like 43s or whatever in that game against the Warriors. And they've gone all in on that. And they've just fallen short.
By the 3.
What was that? Sorry.
You live by the 3 and you die by the 3.
Right. And in the playoffs, I think that not having any ability, hold on, let my dog out of my room. Here she goes. Of course, I thought that ultimately the game gets physical. You need to be able to have some ability to rebound, protect the rim, get the ball in the paint, and they don't have that. And I just think that that's going to hurt them when they play against a team, who's got, established big men. I mean, they're just going to eat them alive.
Yeah. Let me first start by saying that I would be lying to say that as a Lakers fan, I'm not concerned about the Clippers, because I am. I really am. They're deeper than the Lakers, and they got better wings than the Lakers. They have better guards. The Lakers, they're experienced, and they have 2 of the top, maybe 5, arguably 5 best players on the planet. That's where they have the advantage over the Clippers. But you could argue the Clippers have better coaching, better depth, better defense. That's where I'm concerned. But between them two, I put them on the same tier. It's just going to come down to who plays better in that second series. What I will say, though, is I think in this situation, in an unusual situation, in a bubble, I think teams like, let's say if they're fighting for the 8 seed, like the Trailblazers and the Kings and the Grizzlies, obviously the Grizzlies have that 8 seed. I think it's more of an advantage to Portland because they have a guy like Dame Lillard who's been there and done that in the playoffs. I think it's gonna come down to stars just taking over games, basically, because it's an unusual situation, and I don't think guys are gonna be as in tune and as ready as they usually are for playoff basketball. I think it's gonna come down to star power, and that's where the Lakers, the Clippers, the Bucks, and I think the Celtics. I think those are the 4 teams that could get to the championship and potentially win it just because of their depth and star power.
No, I definitely agree. And I think if those are the teams that coming into the season, people were expecting anyways to be those 4 teams. And now with the pandemic, I think it almost just accelerates that even further. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a few teams that are interesting that I'm curious just to see, how they're going to do. I think the Nuggets are a fascinating team. I think the Grizzlies, I mean, I don't think they're going to make a run, but Grizzlies and the Pelicans, these young teams, it's like, hey, how are they going to fare, man? Because they don't have a ton of real established veterans. They're led by their young guys, so they're going to be interesting to see.
Do you think because of the pandemic, do you think there's any chance that a team gets hot and just upsets a team and makes a run the playoffs?
I mean, you said them earlier. I think the Trailblazers are the likeliest team to be that because they got Lillard, McCollum, and Melo. I mean, those are 3 guys that have been around for a little bit, have been in the postseason, have made some runs in the postseason in the past. I think that's a team that I know they're right now on the outside looking in, but like I would be surprised if they get on a run, get in the playoffs, and like make some noise because I mean, they're a good team on paper. They should be a playoff team easily.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah. My one team to watch actually is the Miami Heat. I don't know how far they will go, but I could see them taking out potentially the Celtics or the Sixers in a 7-game series. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero. They got depth, and Jimmy Butler doesn't play around. You know he's going to be playing really hard. So I would say the Heat have the best chance to maybe upset a team or two.
no, I agree with that. The Heat are they're to me. I don't think they're a championship contender yet.
Not
I
yet.
think they're a good year or two away from that.
Yeah.
But no doubt they're good enough to definitely make a little run, and win a series or two. I mean, they are super talented. So we'll see how it all goes. But I think that this bubble, I think the way they did it by just having the teams who are in the playoffs or just looking outside of it, I think was the right call. So I think it'll be entertaining and it'll just feel good. I think also just to see some good basketball. Also, as a Knicks fan, they took me on my misery. I don't need to watch them play any more games this season. So, I do got to give Adams Silver some credit for that one because, no Knicks is okay. I think I've had enough Knicks this season, anyways.
Moving on to the NFL, we've heard some recent news that the Redskins are looking to change their name, but we have yet to hear what name they have chosen or which names they are considering. What do you think would be a good name for the Washington Redskins? Me personally, I don't really care because I don't really like the Redskins and I don't feel really threatened by them because they're always, I don't know. I just always never really have taken them seriously. Maybe if they draft a new quarterback, then I'll start to look at them differently, but I'm not a fan.
Well, I mean, listen, I think that, first of all, Dan Snyder, I think is probably the worst owner in the NFL by a landslide.
Yeah.
And it's a little embarrassing that after years of people saying, hey, you probably should change the name, it's a little offensive that it took sponsors saying, we're not going to give you any money to finally be like, oh, now we need to change it. Like this name should have been changed years ago.
Yeah, this is long overdue.
This is long, long, long overdue. Now, what name they should change it to, I don't really know. The name I did kind of like was the Red Tails, which was an interesting name, which was named after I believe, a platoon from the Tuskegee Airmen, which would be kind of a 180 from, a racial slur essentially being, then changed into a name that actually celebrates, diversity. I know some people do like the Red Wolves. There's been some cool jersey concepts coming out about that.
That would be cool.
That'd be cool. I think that is, as long as it's just, either an animal or something that can kind of be celebrated, it'll be fine. It just can't be anything controversial, which I think the message is loud and clear. And you know what? For Washington, it could be also needed. Like, I think if it's a cool name, if it's cool uniforms, like maybe people will be like, hey, like maybe I want to go sign with them now. Like that,
Hey, here's the one thing that I will give the Redskins, because I do throw a lot of shade at them because I do not like them because obviously NFC East rival, but Ron Rivera, he's going to come in there and he's going to set a culture, and you can't deny that.
Absolutely.
Obviously well respected around the league. And if you're going to make any changes right now, I guess now's the perfect time because you got Ron Rivera to sort of be the head of that change.
Right. And Ron Rivera, he's a pro, man. He's professional. Yeah. Dude's classy as could be. Like, he'll just handle it like I said, like a professional. So we'll see where that goes. But I think the name change, it's supposed to be coming before the start of the season, so we should get it hopefully pretty soon. But like I said, we said it's been long overdue. This name has to go. It's on another level than other Native American team names. I think we can safely say that. It's on a whole nother level of offensiveness. So it's good that they're finally at least ditching the name. I guess it's better, late than never. So we'll see where that goes. But it's about time.
Some other NFL news. We saw, obviously, Patrick Mahomes get that, what was it, 10 years, 503 million.
It's
What
like
was the number?
with incentives, I believe it's up to about 503 or 505. And
Yeah.
here's the
So
thing about that
it's a lot
contract.
of money, basically.
Here's the thing about that contract. So listen, I think we could both assume he was going to be the highest paid player in the league.
Yeah.
Whenever but who would have thought that the highest, most expensive sports contract ever was going to come from the NFL? I would have thought for sure it was going to come
It would
from
be the
baseball
NBA
or NBA,
or the
where
MLB.
there's just a lot more spending. I
Yeah.
was stunned when I heard that's how much Mahomes got paid. Stunned. I just couldn't believe the amount. Like, not saying it was whether it's worth it or not, who knows? But the amount is insane.
As crazy as it sounds, like deserves it. He deserves it. He really does. Like you come in the league, your first year, you're basically you don't play your first year, but your first year as a starter, you're basically you win the MVP, and then you're basically one play away from a Super Bowl. If who was it Chris Jones who lined up
Yes,
offside?
or it was D Ford or the penalty.
D Ford lined up a little offsides. That doesn't happen. He might have 2 Super Bowls right now. Who knows?
Right.
I'm not saying he does, but he won one in his second year as a starter, and like you can't really get off to a better start than that. So listen, man, he obviously super talented, great guy. The Chiefs, they're gonna be in it for the next however many years. But with him and Chris Jones and obviously Andy Reid, do you think they're the next maybe Belichick, Brady, Patriots type dynasty in the NFL?
I think they could be. And actually, I think the biggest key to this puzzle, the biggest piece of this puzzle, rather, that is why I think the Chiefs are where they are. I think none of credit gets given to their general manager, Brett Veach.
Yeah.
Dude has been probably the best general manager the last couple of years. The way he's been able to get the core of that roster paid under contract, and that so it works for both the player and the team. Because that's the thing, like with Mahomes' deal, it's massive, it's crazy, but there's like outs in it.
Yeah.
Don't just say Mahomes unexpectedly starts playing terrible and is no longer the guy. They can get out of this contract.
Yeah.
And they've, so he's, as long as he's there, they'll be able to keep on drafting well, keep the players around their core, still have a good supporting cast. They'll still have.
I'm sorry to interrupt. They drafted your guy, Edwards-Helaire.
They drafted Edwards-Helaire, who was one of my favorite players in the draft, which love the pick. Picked them up in fantasy this year for my dynasty league. So
you have to.
Happy about that. No, but like for example, that was a great pick. And Juan Thornhill was a good pick they got last year. Like guys like that, they just keep on drafting these dudes in day 2 of the draft who just good players, come in, play well, fill their role. If they can just keep, Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, Matthew, Chris Jones, keep those guys on the team together, they'll always be contending for the AFC and the Super Bowl. So to answer your question, yeah, I think they could turn into a dynasty for sure.
I agree with you too. He's just different. He's on a different level in terms of his athleticism, his arm. He says that he didn't even know he was playing football and how to play football until halfway through his first year as a starter. He said he didn't know how to read defenses. Remember when he said that?
Right. Yeah.
Like, that was crazy to me because he was tearing up the league before he said that. So I actually agree with you. As long as honestly, it comes down to Mahomes and Andy Reid to me. As long as they're together, that offense is going to be potent. They're going to be scoring points all the time in a league where all of the rules actually favor offenses now and not defenses. So
right.
I agree with you.
And what I think too is just fascinating, just in general about just the way this Chiefs roster has come together, is that they have built specifically their offense so unconventionally. Just Mahomes is a quarterback. Like 10 years ago, like that's a quarterback that was frightening as a draft prospect.
Yeah,
This
absolutely
backyard style football, just sling it around. Like, no, they got to be pocket passers, poised, read defenses, and I just think it's so fascinating how over time, like that player, that style of just running around and just making plays, totally just improvisational football, how it's like being like almost encouraged and like sought after. Like I remember I saw this this video by this really great YouTuber named KTO who does like these little YouTube videos that are always interesting about just all sorts of stuff, usually with football. And he talked about the evolution of the quarterback position and just how much it has changed over the last few years, and how like at this point in time, like it's almost a necessity to have athleticism at the quarterback position. I think Patrick Mahomes has been a big driver of that. Watching him play, watching Deshaun Watson play, watching Russell Wilson just over his career.
Hey, Kyler Murray got drafted first overall. That would not have happened 10 years ago.
No, not at all. And I think like that's kind of a reason why like a guy like Josh Rosen's just gone. I mean, like no one even talks about him. And that was a guy that coming in, everyone's like, oh, he's a beautiful pocket passer, blah, blah, blah. And he couldn't play. Like he just couldn't move, which is my, worries with a guy like Haskins, Dwayne Haskins that.
Listen, you're talking me watching Eli Manning in his last few years.
Exactly.
Did not look good.
So I just think it's so fascinating how I think the Chiefs have kind of been this team that has embraced this really unique, style of offense. I mean, even Tyreek Hill. I mean, that's a guy that I don't even think 5 years ago people would be looking at him and be like, yeah, he's their number one receiver. Guys like that were always just return guys, gadget guys, nothing more, nothing less. And he's out there, I mean, being one of the best, receivers in the game. Like it's just so fascinating just to watch that team, how they're building it. So, they paid Chris Jones too, got him under contract. I mean, they're a dynasty, no question about it. I mean, we'll see how other teams come, because the Ravens, I think Lamar Jackson, now 2 playoff years under his belt, I think he's going to be a lot better in the postseason. And there's some teams up and coming, man, in the AFC.
I think Denver in a year. We'll have some battles with Kansas City in that division.
I think Denver in a year. I think Buffalo potentially this year. I think Miami in 2 years could be coming. I mean, there's some good teams, young teams that are coming that are going to make the AFC, I think, such a fascinating conference.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting to me, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. How do you think the Mahomes extension will affect other quarterbacks in the future getting paid, such as Deshaun Watson, and in particular Dak Prescott, who just got tagged by the Dallas Cowboys?
So I think that this contract, look, it changes things a little bit, right? Obviously, but it's so different because usually when guys are like, then that next up and coming guy is coming who needs that contract extension, right? Who's arguably the best at his position. It's always, we're going to one up the last guy, not by a ton, but by a little bit, just a little bit better, And Mahomes' contract is just so far and away, like distant from the next highest paying quarterback deal, that I actually think that it's not going to do anything to guys like Dak Prescott. Because all GMs, have to say is, listen, Dak's good,
Patrick Mahomes,
but he's not that, And I think that like a guy like Dak Prescott, I think he'd be foolish to walk around saying I should be getting Mahomes money, because if he's real with himself, he'll know, yeah, I'm not Patrick Mahomes.
Now, do you think that will help him get a couple extra million?
It might help him, and I think he should get paid, even though I have my reservations about him, whether I think this is a guy who can be an elite quarterback. I still think that, you can win a Super Bowl with Prescott. That's your draft pick. You got, they got to sign him. And so I think they will sign him, and he might get a little extra money from this, but I don't even know what quarterback could be even next to even get a deal on in that ballpark, right? Like what quarterbacks are, as of right now, deserve that, a contract even in the same ballpark as Mahomes? Like, can you think of one?
I mean, I guess if Russell Wilson was a little younger and didn't get paid yet, I guess you could kind of, but like not even really. Like it's just
right.
like
he's just on another level.
Yeah.
So I think it does change the quarterback market a little bit. But I like I said, for a guy like Prescott, he's not going to get that kind of money, and he should expect to.
No chance. What do you think about just Deshaun Watson, real quick?
I feel bad for Deshaun. I feel so bad.
Well, yeah, so do I. He's just in a terrible situation.
Yeah, he's a great player, man. He just stuck with Billy O. Like, and I hate to talk down to Bill O'Brien. He's a fellow Nittany Lion. We have to
But you got to call it and see it. He's just managed the team horribly in the past 3. What have they made? 2 trades for running backs, giving away draft picks, and then they traded DeAndre Hopkins.
Right, and I mean, it's just been with Bill O'Brien. The problem has been that when these top contract. Here's the thing. I actually watched Brett Coleman talk about this. He's actually a Texans fan, and he was saying the problem with Bill O'Brien is at the end of the day, he thinks he's Bill Belichick, and he's building that roster like Bill Belichick in the sense of why has the Patriots always been able to have cap room, spend money, blah blah blah, because those guys will take a pay cut to play for him. They respect the hell out of Belichick so much. They know if I come there, I'll be a winner.
Yeah.
Bill O'Brien, sure, he's won the division for the last 6 years. Guys won 1 playoff game that span. 2 playoff games, 2 playoff games. You know, he doesn't have the same respect as Belichick. So these star guys aren't going to be like, I'm not going to take a hometown discount for this dude. Like, I'm going to get paid.
Yeah.
And instead of working out the process, the back and forth negotiations, if these guys want to get paid top dollar, even if they just got extended, he just says, enough of you, and just ships you off. And that's just no way to build a team.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
So I feel terrible for him. Do you think that Deshaun Watson, when his contract's up, do you think that he should get out of Houston if Billy O's still there?
I 100% think he should, but I don't think he will. He's going to get paid a lot. And rightfully so. He should.
I mean, that's a guy the Texans have to pay as much as he wants. I mean, you trade DeAndre Hopkins, Clowney, okay.
He's been sacked the most since he's been in the league. He's been like a top 7 quarterback.
Right. That's a guy that, yeah. I still can't believe they traded Hopkins in July. I still can't believe that.
Yeah. No,
that's like the time. What were you going to say? Sorry.
All right. This is way off topic, but I'm calling it right now. Early prediction. I know we usually do our standings predictions before the NFL season starts, like the week before. But I'm calling it right now. The Indianapolis Colts will win that division. I do not see the Titans winning that division with Ryan Tannehill. I do not trust him at all. And the Texans, I don't even like. We just talked about it. Like Billy O, man. Billy O.
No, I mean, that's just going to come down to, ultimately, if Phillip Rivers, still's got it, because last season didn't look like it.
Yeah, no. Honestly, you heard me last year. I slandered Phillip Rivers, but to me, it's not even about that. He just has to game manage behind that offensive line, and they drafted Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman. I think those are 2 great weapons right there. They're going to run the hell out of the football, and I just don't. I trust Phillip Rivers, even if he's 40 years old. I trust him more than I trust Ryan Tannehill. So
yeah, no, I think the Titans are just such. I mean, we see it every year. That one team that makes a little noise. Everyone's like, "Whoa!" Like this could be a Super Bowl contender, like dangerous team, and they just fall back down to earth. Now,
yeah,
I actually don't think Tannehill is that bad, but to expect him to play at the level he did last season, I mean, we're talking about the most efficient season ever by a quarterback in NFL history.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this guy, his completion percentage, his positive plays, I mean, it was about as good as it gets. To expect that same play, especially now with all the expectations, all that chatter about the Texans contending for the AFC, is that going to get to them? And ultimately our team's going to just load the box of them and say, hey, run with Henry, or try to throw a Tannehill. We don't care. We'll play in the box every time.
No,
that's how they got to the AFC Championship game, was just run with Henry. I mean, Tannehill didn't really play all that big of a role in their run. I mean, the guy didn't throw for 100 yards in those 2 wins.
Yeah, no, honestly, the Titans remind me of, I forget what year it is. 2017. What was the year that the Bills made the playoffs? Before last year.
2017.
That they played the 2017 Jags. That's what the Titans
yep.
this year.
100%. I agree with that.
Run last year, but I don't trust their quarterback play. I don't trust it at all.
No.
You can only play such good defense and run the ball for so long. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I just think that AFC South now, though, we're kind of bringing it up. I mean, that is such a nose division right there. I mean, I think Jacksonville's unlikely to do anything, even though I actually do think Gardner Minshew is not that bad. They just have no talent around them.
Yeah.
And I just think there's just, I mean, he's just got nothing to work with.
Yeah.
But
somehow Ngakoue is still on the roster.
They got to trade him, right?
It's been way too long. I thought he'd be traded by now.
And I think it's foolish, too, because he said, I'm not signing with Jags. I'm not playing a down of football for the Jags.
Yeah.
That's the
especially,
case.
Especially with the coronavirus going on, I can't – why would you do that?
Right, and if that's the case, trade the guy.
Yeah.
If he's not going to play for you, just get something in return, because if you just hold on to him and hope, wait, maybe this time he'll decide to play, he becomes a free agent at the end of the season. So you might as well, if you're going to lose him, you might as well get a little in return, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess now moving on with some of these other NFL contracts that have been going down. Speaking of actually Derrick Henry, just got paid.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a good move? Because Derrick Henry's a fascinating running back, I think.
If I were the Titans, I would have paid Derrick Henry first before Ryan Tannehill. I'll tell you that. I don't know how much I would have paid him, but I think one thing about the contract is that it speaks about the value, or should I say diminishing value of the NFL running back position, because this is a guy who he didn't just play great. He literally, you can make an argument, he carried the
team. Oh, he definitely did.
to that AFC game in Arrowhead against the Chiefs, which they were winning at one point early on. Obviously, Mahomes came back and won that game, but Derrick Henry was a beast against the Patriots, against the Ravens. Those were two of the best defenses in the league, and he just made them look foolish in those two games that he played. He's obviously a beast. I don't really care that he's not the type of modern day, like, do-it-all running back who can run routes as a wide receiver, catch out of the backfield. The guy's just such a freak of nature that you got to look out for him, and he's breaking tackles every play. I think he's the guy who you pay. I've said it multiple times, I just would not have paid Ryan Tannehill.
So I think with Henry's contract, he's not the highest paid running back in the league.
Yes,
not even close.
Actually got him for a bargain.
They kind of got him for a bargain, which I think paying a running back like Derrick Henry, who isn't a do-it-all guy, that money actually was like, you know what? Good move by the Titans. Because like you're right, he carried that team in the playoffs, and he's probably going to carry them again. And I think that, my opinion about paying running backs is unless they're do-it-all running backs who are also freaks.
Yeah.
I'm a guy who doesn't believe in really paying running backs.
What about Rodgers?
I've just seen over the last couple of years, man, you can get a lot out of a little
at
the running back position. Ultimately, the Chiefs just won a Super Bowl. Damian Williams is their number one back, who's a solid back, nothing special.
Yeah.
But he's good enough. It's fine.
What do you think about paying wide receivers?
So wide receivers, it depends on what kind of receiver they are. Like Hopkins, you pay him. He's top-notch receiver. You got to pay him. Mike Thomas, he's going to get paid, and he deserves to get paid. I think that there are receivers that are, tough to figure out if you pay him or not, are guys like an Alshon Jeffrey, right?
Yeah.
He's a 1,000-yard guy. He's the number one receiver. Is he a total game changer that you're willing to lace out big-time money to?
Yeah.
That's where, I'm not too sure. But I'd rather pay a receiver, I think, than a running back. Because with running backs, the injuries, how late, they can't, usually don't play too great later into their careers.
Yeah, shorter careers, definitely.
Versus receivers where, look, Emmanuel Sanders is kind of old and he's still getting it done. There's guys like that. Julian Edelman is 4? Still had a 1,000-yard season. You can get production out of old receivers.
Yeah.
Old running backs, outside of Adrian Peterson, the age, who's an ageless one, and Frank Gore too. Those are the only two guys. God bless them too, man. They're unbelievable.
Yeah.
But outside of those two guys, look, Todd Gurley's already just being considered kind of just, used and done. And the guy's like 28. I know he's got arthritis in his knee, but that's just the state of the NFL.
Yeah, that's just the nature of playing running back right there.
Exactly. And I was even thinking about it too, that we were talking about how much the NFL's changed. In general, just running backs like Derrick Henry is such a freak where it's okay, but I've noticed these big, powerful backs who can't really catch the ball have just vanished. Like, you know who's a guy who was thinking about who just vanished off the face of the earth?
Who?
Jeremy Hill. Remember him?
Oh, yeah. He had a great rookie year.
2 solid seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
Great rookie year. And I think that was a guy who was just caught up in like that transition where he's not very fast, can't really catch the ball. And the way the NFL is going, you're no good if that's the case, unless you're Derrick Henry and you're, 250 pounds and, are just such a beast that it doesn't matter, So, but I thought it was a good move. But like, the Tannehill contract, we'll see.
Definitely.
We'll see.
All right, well, transitioning finally, let's start with your team. Buffalo Bills, favored to win the AFC East. I can't imagine how that feels. How does that feel?
It's weird. It's uncharted territory, obviously. I mean, for all my life, they've been terrible. Every year it's been, hey, maybe they'll make the playoffs. And it was kind of weird to be like, wow, like our team, like this team's totally a playoff team, like no doubt about it. They're in the playoffs. The expectations are, can they sneak in the wild card? It's higher than that. I actually saw on Pat McAfee's show today, they actually had Lorenzo Alexander on. And what he said was, even made me take a step back and go, whew. He said the Bills this season should be contending for the AFC. He said if they don't make a run in the playoffs this year, if they don't get to the AFC Championship game, season might honestly be a disappointment.
Wow.
Right? Like, the Bills, like, what? And he said if you see the culture in that locker room, the talent on that roster, and the way that team works, how hard they play, how hard they work, you'd be saying the same thing. Like, that's coming from him. Now, obviously, the dude, just played for the Bills. Of course, he's going to, give some love to his former team. But, it's a strange world.
Listen, they should have been playing in Arrowhead last year.
Oh, yeah, they should have won that game. Ugh. That game, man.
But they were up, what, 16-0?
16-0. I mean, they had a touchdown taken away from them, too, right at the start of that half.
Yeah.
You remember that kickoff? That whole craziness where the referee in the black jacket came out and, like, changed the call. Remember that?
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was like, what is it? But anyways, I could talk about how upsetting that is for
I do want to ask you one question in particular, though. If, let's say, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'll even knock on wood for you so that it doesn't happen. But let's say that Josh Allen comes out this season, and I personally think he's going to definitely play really well this year. I think year 3, they added Stephon Diggs. They added some receivers in the draft. They drafted Zach Moss at running back. Mm-hmm. They definitely surrounded him with some more talent. Let's say he comes out and is not playing great or does not play that well particularly, and they sort of fall short or maybe miss the playoffs or just don't live up to expectations. Do you think that the Bills should stick with Allen, or in that case, do you think they should start looking outside of Josh Allen? I'm not saying that will happen, but hypothetically speaking, let's say it did.
So I think that it depends. Like if Allen comes out, has a similar season to last year, makes minimal growth, I think you say, I think what you do is you bring in like a veteran. You bring in, for example, like an Andy Dalton type for like this past offseason, right? You bring in a guy like that, like a Nick Foles, just kind of like what the Bears did with Trubisky.
Yeah.
You just put a little pressure on him. You don't give up on him, but he's just like, hey, we have an option just in case.
Yeah.
I think the only way the Bills completely move on from him is if it's just a disaster.
Yeah.
He's terrible, and he's throwing picks left and right, and he gets benched, and, just a complete implosion, which I'm pretty confident won't happen.
Yeah, because he's taken steps each year. He's definitely gotten better by game, by week, whatever you want to call it. I don't see it.
Yeah, and unlike the guys that he's been compared to as like, oh, don't get excited. Like, I see a lot of like Bortles. I see a lot of Trubisky. I think that Allen is such a special enough talent that he kind of won't fall into that situation. Like, he's just such arm talent, such athleticism.
Yeah, he's got that 99 overall match.
Yeah, exactly. And he's the dude. I mean, the way he's working out this offseason, I've seen a couple of videos. Like, that he's on a mission, and I think that he's going to come out, and ultimately, I think he's going to take steps forward. Now, how big steps We'll see. I know some Bills Mafia people are saying MVP. I think that's a little crazy.
I don't know, man.
But I think he could be, a real good quarterback. Now, speaking of, young quarterbacks, the Giants, year 2 with Jones. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
I mean, so far, so good. I've been pretty happy to see what Daniel Jones has been doing this offseason. He's sort of rallied up the special team, not the special teams, but as the skills position players. They've worked out in Texas. He's been organizing workouts, sort of assuming that leadership role that him and Saquon Barkley have been sort of gifted by the franchise. But the thing with the Giants this year, I'm not expecting them to be that good. However, I do expect them to get better as the season goes on. And one thing that I think works at a disadvantage against them this year is they definitely got better in the draft. And I think that they're definitely a better team because they definitely address some issues in the draft. But at the same time, with this whole pandemic going on, that means that there's less time for all of these players to get acclimated to Joe Judge and his new culture, a whole new coaching staff, new coordinators. I just think it's a pretty big recipe for, I don't want to say disaster, but just some early losses in the season. But I think as the season goes on, as everyone starts to sort of gel with each other, they'll get better as the season goes on. That's what I'm looking for them to just play hard and for Daniel Jones to show his signs, grow as a leader and as a quarterback, and to just get better as the season goes on. One thing that I do want to point out, though, I saw this tweet. Chris Jones got franchised at the same $16 million figure as Leonard Williams, but over the past 2 seasons, Jones has 24.5 sacks and Williams has 17.5 in his 5 years as a pro.
Yeah,
that goes to show you some of the little mishaps that Dave Gettleman has made so far as Giants general manager.
Right. Look, he's made some bad moves, no question about it. I will say this though. I think that he's changed the construction of that roster so much. Like, I think when he first came in, the Giants were a very top-heavy team where they had some big-time stars. I mean, obviously Belle, right? At the time. Yes, and Janoris Jenkins was still considered a good player.
Yeah.
Snacks Harrison, And I think that the roster doesn't have that awesome star power, but I think it's a much more more rounded.
Right.
Like, the holes aren't as bad.
The offensive line is world
way better. And you got to give them that. I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. I think the Leonard Williams situation is just stupid. I think Leonard Williams is nothing more than a decent starter in the league.
Yeah.
He's kind of a bust.
Yeah.
And obviously Odell, I mean, listen, for what they got for Odell was now the Texans made that trade look good all of a sudden, of course, but but I think the Giants, I agree with you. I think the Giants will be a little slow out of the gate. It's going to be like 2011 with the lockout. A lot of those teams with the young players and new coaches and were a little slow out of the gate. I think they should be like a 7-9 football team though, and like a competitive 7-9, like a promising.
Where, that's what you really ask for, especially in a situation like this.
Absolutely. And Daniel Jones, I think, is going to get better. I think that Saquon will hopefully healthy the whole year will help him tremendously.
Yeah.
Because that's just such a –
and a better offensive line.
And a better O-line. I think, like I said, we talked about after the draft, I think Andrew Thomas, although might have not been the sexiest pick at tackle, I think was the safest pick at tackle. I think he's guaranteed to be just a good player. Mm-hmm. Which for the Giants, they just take that and run because they haven't had that on the O-line in years. So, we'll see. But I think the Giants will be much more competitive. I think Joe Judge is going to bring a real good culture. From what I hear, it's he's saying all the right things, and this guy seems like he's serious, which is good. I guess real quick before we sign off, college football, man.
Oh, let's talk.
What do we think? Is it going to happen? What do we think?
Oh man, I don't know. I want to say yes, just simply because, I would like to think that there's way too much money to be lost out on. I feel like that's how schools are going to look at it, because at the end of the day, these schools are bringing in some of them at least, more than what, 80, 90 million dollars in revenue for one season. That's what the statistics say. But you also have to remember, obviously, it's a global pandemic. There's a public health, obviously, issue like that overrides anything. So it's gonna come down to whether or not, obviously, the state of the U.S., how it's going when it gets closer to September and August. I can't really give you an answer right now. I don't really know. I know the Big Ten obviously made that first initial move by making it conference-only schedule, 10 games. I'm not sure how much that really helps. I know there's less travel, but at the end of the day, you're still playing football. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting. I know Joel Klatt made this point. It's going to be interesting to see how the testing, or I guess the resources, measure up from school to school. Obviously, it's not as big as an impact as it could have been, but he was explaining how, let's say Penn State plays Idaho. Well, Penn State most likely will have more access to testing than Idaho has. So Penn State's not going to want to play Idaho because they don't want the risk of one of their players contracting the disease. And I'm wondering if the Big Ten and other conferences are going to be able to sort of unionize and try to create like a standard like plan for testing players so that everyone has the same resources, there's no concerns, and that they're able to just play safe football. It's going to be interesting though. I honestly have no clue. I really hope so. I really do.
So I'm a little less optimistic about the NCAA than I am with the NFL.
Okay.
I just think that it's just such a different factor that you got student unpaid, athletes.
Yeah.
And the NFL is just such a business.
Yeah.
That they'll go through all the.
But yeah.
Oh, I know, but the NFL has, especially with the
That's
NFL,
their job. That's their job.
Exactly, and ultimately, I saw this stat that was saying that the percentage of revenue for the NFL that comes from ticket sales is about a third, 33%, which is a lot, and that's a lot of money to lose in a year.
Yeah.
But the NFL makes so much money off of TV contracts, advertisements, sponsorships, but for college football, 85% of revenue is coming from ticket sales. And there's definitely not going to be, fans in the stands, or if there are, it'll be such a small number that what I think might be an issue for some of these programs. Not only is it just a pandemic, which is a whole factor of its own, but for a program, not even like Penn State, how about a program, let's just say I don't know, like UConn, okay? Like how much of a loss financially is that going to be for them to just have to try to play a football season with no fans in the stands? Like, are they going to lose money, from having a season? And I just think too, the NFL has so much more money at stake that they're just going to make sure that there is football some way, somehow. And it's different when you're a paid adult versus, ultimately, you're a college student. It's just a different thing. So I don't know how that's going to work. I hope that there's college football. What do you think about college football in the spring? Because I know some leagues are thinking about moving sports into the spring.
I'm not a proponent of that. I just say you can't play in the fall. You can't play for the year. I don't see the point of playing in the spring when it could potentially alter next fall season. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're playing in the spring, you don't want to have them start practicing for the fall in the summer like they usually do, right?
Right.
That could potentially lead to more injury risk.
Right. And plus all the guys I think that are top picks, for example, our guy Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
If it's spring football, I saw a way too early 2021 Matt Miller mock draft on Bleacher Report. He had Parsons going 6th overall.
Yeah, why would he play?
Why would he play? Exactly. These top guys aren't going to play, which is, which takes away from it.
If you're Trevor Lawrence, would you play spring football?
No. If I'm Justin Fields, I'm not playing.
If
I'm Jamar Chase, I'm not playing.
Yeah.
I don't blame those guys one bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. If it can't get done now, they should just chalk it up.
Yeah.
Move on. It sucks. It would be such a bummer.
I'm praying we don't have to come on this show and talk about it because
I'll say this: if they take away college football, please at least give us the NFL. That's all I can say. I'm optimistic about the NFL. I'm optimistic about it. I'll be honest.
No, I am too, because at the end of the day, they make a load of money. Obviously, it's a huge business, and they've had the advantage of watching these other leagues, and they're sort of going to be able to take what other leagues have done correctly and their mistakes and sort of create their own plan based on that. So I'm confident in the NFL. Obviously, what you said, the issue with college football is that they're going to be asking student athletes to trot out on the field and sort of risk their health just for the university's benefit. So
exactly, yeah. Well, see, but as J.J. Watt did say today, he said he made a list of things the players know and don't know about this season. And the first thing on his list and the last thing he put on his list was, we want to play football. So yeah. We will see. On that note, it's been a good first show. I think that this went on up pretty well. Hopefully, before we know, we'll be back at Innovation Park. But this is still not a bad alternative, At least we're able to produce some content. So thank you so much for listening, or I guess watching, as this is going to be on YouTube. But for Pat Tartaro, I'm Mitch Broder, and we'll see you back next week.
Thank you for joining us. Bye. All right. Good job.